So, good evening. Sorry, that was kind of loud. Welcome to the meeting of the Plymouth Community School Board for April 10th, 2017. If you'll join us in the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get into our regular agenda, the first item that we're going to start with this evening is our preliminary determination hearing. We're going to hold a project and preliminary hearing on the proposed construction project for the junior high middle school. I think there was a sign-up sheet. Okay. If anybody is interested in speaking, did you have a chance to sign? If not, we'll take care of that anyway. But so thank you. We're going to have a presentation first before we get into comments from the public. The presentation will be by the administration and our advisors, and then there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments or ask questions. At the hearing, please try to limit your comments to around 3 minutes or so that everybody has a chance to speak, and try to avoid repetition to the extent possible. To start off, I'm going to ask Jeff to explain the purpose of the hearing.
Do you mind?
Jeff's our attorney, I'm sorry.
Do you mind if I do it from here?
I do not mind.
Thank you. The hearing tonight is required by Indiana law, specifically Indiana Code Section 20-26-7-37 requires that anytime a school corporation enters into a lease or issues bonds to finance a project where they will spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building, the corporation must first hold a public hearing to explain the potential value of the project to the school corporation and to the community. Also, according to Indiana Code Section 6-1.1-20-3.5, the corporation is required to hold a public hearing and also adopt a resolution to preliminarily determine to issue bonds or enter into a lease for a project that will obligate the school corporation to pay more than $2 million in total project costs. And I want to stress that the public hearing and the adoption of that resolution are the very beginning of the legal process, and they set a maximum amount for the financial terms of the project. The school board remains in control of the project. You can make changes to the project. You can always choose to scale back or issue a lesser amount in bonds. But if you were to increase the amount of bonds for the project, you would have to start the process over from the very beginning.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dan, our superintendent, about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
Yes, the last time we did a project, there were a lot of people that I talked to that felt like the Lincoln Junior High should have been replaced at that particular time. However, the other needs that we had were there and important, and but I knew coming into the superintendency that I would probably be looking at a replacement of the junior high. So in 2012, I started boning up on what issues we had with the building, and I called in some experts. First, I asked in 2012 Barton Covellama Architects to come in and give us an estimate on what it would take to renovate the junior high or what it would cost to replace the junior high, because I wanted to understand the difference. The cost for renovating Lincoln Junior High would be nearly 75% of the cost to build a new school. That was at that time, which has been 5 years ago. The renovation would have included the following: a new roof on the entire building, high efficiency HVAC systems, the new mechanicals, 190 doors and windows that would meet code, new electrical and lighting systems, new sewage system. if you need to walk into the junior high one afternoon and you can smell the sewage system quite easily. Improved stormwater drainage system, tuck pointing the brick exterior, putting in a new generator, flooring, ceiling tiles throughout, adding on 8 rooms, putting in a secure entrance, and new locks and doors, hardware on the doors and windows, updating all of the science rooms. And even with the renovation, there's still going to be some things that we couldn't do. The average size of a room at Lincoln Junior High is 500 square feet. Compare that to the average size of a room at Riverside Intermediate, which is 900 square feet. And so we have plenty of rooms. We're not out of room by any way, but the rooms that we have are not big enough, and it would have been very, very expensive to combine rooms because of the shape that they're in. They're a very long and narrow rectangle. The other thing we wouldn't be able to improve would be the pickup and drop-off zones that we have an issue with right now. And if you go to the junior high right before school or right after school, you'll see what I mean. The rule of thumb for renovations versus building new is that the renovation is more than if the renovation is more than 67% of the price to build new, then the corporation should build new. Once I started to feel comfortable with understanding what the difference between renovating and building, I wanted to see if people in Plymouth thought we needed a new building. The first thing I did was I had a group of Plymouth citizens, business owners, parents, school teachers from around the district, and we went through, it took about a month, we went through all of the buildings and we looked with the focus on what do our facilities tell us that we need. And at the end of the time, we brought the group together and said, we're going to divide you into small groups, and now put down what you think we need to do at the buildings to make sure that they're safe for students. The very first thing on their list was to build a new junior high. And a lot of the things they pointed to were things that were in that original list, especially the sewage smell. That particular year, we had a lot of freezing, and so there was actually snow melting and coming up through the floor of the restroom down by the gym because the sewage sewage lines were frozen. The second group we brought in is made up of former administrators from an organization called Administrative Assistants, people that were building principals and superintendents, and they come in and help us with just about anything we've asked them to do as far as giving us consultation. We asked them to do the same thing, visit all of our buildings, talk to people, find out what they believe we needed as a school for our facilities. Once again, they came with the conclusion that we needed to build a new junior high. And again, they pointed to many of the things that we've already listed in the system. One of the things when they talk to parents and business owners in the community, one of the things that they said that they wanted to make sure we did was build a school where we had walking districts, because we had just built Menominee out south of town, and there's very little walking to that school, and they wanted to make sure we had a school that had walking districts to it. Finally, I asked Humbaugh to give us an analysis of our debt service fund and what would be the best time to finance a new Lincoln Junior High. At that time, they said it would be between the years of 2020 and 2022. Starting in 2020, the debt would start falling off from our last project, and by 2022, we would be completely out of debt. So that's what's brought us here tonight. We're asking for permission to finance a new junior high school and to tear down all of the old junior high except for the 1926 original Lincoln High School at a cost of $49,995,000.
Thank you, Dan. The next presentation will be from our consulting architect, Brian Bollinger from Barton Co.
Thank you. Is that available?
Is this ready?
Oh. I'll refer to the middle screen since it's the one I think the pointer will work the best on. You can see the existing junior high property here, and most of you are pretty familiar with it. Gibson Street to the north, Liberty to the west, LaPorte Street to the south, and then the highway over here. And I'm just going to, rather than belabor this, going to jump to the diagram. And we're in a pretty rough planning stage right now. The steps that we've taken so far, we've had pretty extensive what we call programming meetings with a kind of a cabinet level group of administrators and with Mr. Galt, the existing building principal, to go through in detail and talk about how large every space would be, the size and number of classrooms that you would have in the building, the way those classrooms would function. We've talked kind of at this level right here of how the site would function and how you want those buildings to work relative to one another on the site as a district at that administrative level. And we use all of that information to come up with the figure that Dan mentioned of the $49 million for kind of not only this project but some other projects that I'll talk about as well. So we're at a very high level planning stage, but we feel like that gives us enough information that we can come to the board with this type of proposal. So what you see here is that 1926 building remaining at the west end of the property. There would be some site improvements associated with that in terms of sidewalks, how you actually get in and out of the building from the east side, because we are showing just to the east of that fairly large or potentially fairly large parking area that could then be shared between the two facilities. So that is part of the site concept, is that you could have staff parking there, event parking for events in either building, either at the auditorium or down in what we have labeled here, physical education, health and wellness section, the gym area of the new junior high school. The yellow dots and arrows are just a fairly simple depiction of possible traffic flow. One of the main driving concepts here is that, no pun intended, but one of the main concepts behind the site organization here is that we could pull a, sorry, this keeps kind of turning off on me. We could pull a strip of visitor drop-off pavement off of Gibson Street and allow cars to stack off-road as much as possible, even to the point where, if needed, once we get through a more thorough traffic study, you could actually potentially enter off of the alleyway down here and snake through the site and then come up here to drop off, so your front door would, in this case, face Gibson Street. The red arrows that are a little fainter on the big screen, you can see them a little bit better on the TV view, would then be bus traffic. There's areas for buses to pull in, stack, students get dropped off, and then buses leave again. That would also more than likely be kind of the service area of the building in terms of deliveries, trash being taken from the site, and so forth back there. And we've tried to leave some areas of green space as much as we can around the rest of the site, and we'll get into more detail of that once we know actual traffic counts and number of parking spaces and things like that. So the building itself, kind of the white block here represents the amount of square footage that we need to satisfy the program that we've developed.
And apologize, these don't read very well from the seats, but what you're seeing in terms of large-scale planning blocks, that wellness, physical education and wellness end of the building. At the far west, kind of at the north center section of the building is the secure main entrance, so where visitors would come and go from the building during school hours, get checked in. Currently, you have to cross the hallway to get into the office in the building. Now that would all happen right up front, so that you'd have to see an attendant in the reception area before you could even enter the building proper. And then the media center space would also be kind of part of the front door of the building, if you will. The middle section to the south then is cafeteria, fine arts and support spaces. So by fine arts, band, choir, orchestra, music instruction space. We do have programs right now, space for a small stage in the cafeteria, so that you could have speakers, presentations, performances by the band in that space, or drama even. And then support areas, kitchen and receiving and things like that to support those programs. Then at the far east end of the site, then we just described it as kind of the academic wing, if you will, that has not only just traditional grade level classrooms, it's also got the Innovation Academy rooms. We have programmed for some not extracurricular, but specialty programs such as Project Lead the Way, spaces where students can get into projects type rooms and get more hands-on with things. So that's down there. Also special education spaces, and that east end of the building is all programmed to be 2 stories, which is why this may look kind of small on this site. We'd have 2 stories of classrooms kind of throughout that whole east end of the project. So, are there questions from the board about this diagram? As Dan referred to, aside from secure entrance and getting all the other space planning right that we talked about, one of the biggest issues that is addressed here is the all-new classroom space. It's all kind of the right size for the programs that you need. Some of those are even larger than the 900 square feet for some of those specialty areas that I described. So that is the junior high site. In terms of other needs that we are also trying to address as part of the project, there is proposed renovations at Washington Elementary School. There's an open core area of the building that's still not walled in, and leaves that area kind of unsecured during the day. There's also a need in that building for, again, we're talking about the project space here where students can do more hands-on activities, more of a project style room there that has access to water. Not necessarily maker space per se, but that type of opportunity to get students out of the classroom and be able to work with different types of materials than they would in the classroom space. So we can address 2 issues at once there by renovating that small area. It's about 2 large classroom size spaces that we're proposing to renovate at Washington. Additionally, there's roofing, roof replacement, a fairly small amount, but ongoing needs that the district has in terms of roof replacement, and some of that would occur at Washington Elementary School and also at the high school, and potentially some minor roof work at Riverside School as well. And the last major need is high school mechanical work, the chillers, and some of the air distribution in classrooms is pretty much end of life, pretty inefficient equipment, and again on the list of needs to be addressed with this project in terms of that total financing that we have proposed. Any other questions? Any questions for Brian? Okay, thank you.
Next, we will hear from our financial advisor, Pooja, from Omaha, to talk about the proposed financing for this project.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight I am here to talk through the financing piece of the project. This presentation that's here includes information on the school corporation's existing debt structure and how the $49.9 million bonds fits in with the existing debt structure. Before we get into the presentation, I also want to mention that we have also included information on the $2 million GO bond that the school is looking to issue later this year. And even though the project hearing is just for the 49 million lease, we wanted to include this information for everyone to see the overall picture. So let's start with the school corporation's existing debt. This is what the school corporation's, this is a chart demonstrating the school corporation's existing debt. So as you can see, in years 2017 and through 2019, the total annual debt service payment is about $4.6 million. And then there's a little bit of a step down in years 2020 and 2021. And then all of the currently outstanding debt is going to be paid off by 2022. This schedule here, again, is the same information that we just saw in chart form. This is the number detail for the chart that we just looked at. So like I mentioned earlier, the school corporation is also looking at a $2 million GO bond to be issued later this year for some improvements, including paving, site work, and HVAC work. And so if these bonds are issued, they're going to be issued before the lease. So we're going to look at the 2 million GO bonds first. In this chart, the blue bars represent the school corporation's existing debt that we just looked at. And then we're adding the red bars that represents the 2 million GO. So as you can see in the chart, the total annual payment in budget year 2018 is higher than budget year 2017, which means that there's going to be incremental tax impact from the $2 million GO bonds. We're calculating that incremental tax impact to be about 8 cents. And in terms of the annual incremental tax impact for the different taxpayers, this slide reflects what the tax impact is going to be for homeowners, for farmland, and for commercial rental property. For an average homeowner within the school district, the incremental tax impact is going to be $37.09. This is the annual incremental tax impact. For 100 acres of farmland, it's going to be $144.86. And for 100,000 commercial rental property, it's going to be $78.30. Before I go on to the structure of the lease, are there any questions so far? So the 49.9 million lease, we've structured that to be repaid over 20 years. So as you can see in this chart, the blue bars here represent the school corporation's currently outstanding debt plus the 2 million GO that we just looked at. And then the red bars represent the 49.9 million lease rental bonds. So as you can see here, we've structured it so that the debt service payment level stays the same, or in other words, the total annual debt service payments in 2019 does not exceed the 5.2 million that we set in 2018 with the GO. And then this is again the backup numbers for the chart that we just looked at. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Pooja?
Is there a tax impact?
I'm sorry?
Is there a tax impact on those three? Pooja, is there a tax impact then from this?
So like I showed here, with the 2 million GO, there is incremental tax impact of 8 cents. But then when we're structuring the lease, we're making sure that it does not exceed that amount that we've set with the GO.
will remain about the same as what we are now?
No, what year now is to the existing. This is, the blue bar in this chart is what year now. So the 2017 blue bar is the current level, but then with the GO additional, there is 8 cents of incremental impact. So the increase that you see in 2018 represents that 8 cents incremental. But then going to the leaves, we're making sure that it stays at the same level as in 2018.
I guess that's what I meant, it wasn't very clear.
Oh, okay.
What was your question, Melissa? I'm sorry.
That what we're paying approximately now is gonna be evened out over 20 years, so there won't be, I mean, next year we'll have a little more than what we're paying this year. But after that, it'll be,
Level up,
yeah.
I think, and what we've talked about before, I think is, this is a chart that shows it pretty well, that, we're addressing a lot of needs here with this project and with the GO bonds, et cetera, but going forward, we know there's gonna be other capital needs that the corporation's gonna have through 2038. So, the way I look at it is the 49 million in red, is structured so there is no impact. But that's after we take into consideration the 2 million that we're talking about for this year for improvements corporation-wide. What I like about it is it allows the corporation in the future some capacity within the debt service rate to address ongoing capital needs that, quite honestly, our CPF is not going to be able to keep up with. Those are just what we've experienced, and I think we will continue to experience. So it's a structure that recognizes that, so every 2, 3, 4 years, future boards can have a group of capital improvements that we know are going to be necessary without impacting the debt service rate. Other questions from the board? Thank you, Peter. Okay, with that information, we're now going to open the public hearing for an opportunity for folks to ask questions, make comments, etc. I have a list, but if you didn't happen to see the list, we'll certainly take your comments or questions as well. So, see if I'm missing anything legally. Jeff, am I good?
Yep.
All right, so we will officially open the public hearing now for comments. I'm just going to take these in the order that they were listed. So first is Kevin Bridgman.
I want to start with, I'm not against the building project.
Thank you for being here, by the way.
I'm not against the building project. I'm against the location and this particular setup. I live at 718 East LaPorte. If you look on the chart, the red arrows in the parking area are basically at West Street. My house is the second house to the west of that particular street. We're going to be exiting and entering buses basically at my driveway. In the 5 or 6 years I've lived there, I've probably called the transportation department half a dozen times complaining about bus drivers and their 40, 45 mile an hour driving down our street. It's fixed for a few days and then it goes back to they drive however they want. They nearly struck me backing out of my driveway. LaPorte Street is 26 feet wide. I measured it today. Gibson Street is 48 feet wide. Billy measured it today. A small pickup truck, my mid-sized pickup truck, is 7.5 feet wide. The most popular vehicle in the United States right now, the Ford F-150, is 97 inches wide, not including mirrors. A school bus, I measured one today, is either 96 inches wide or 102 inches wide. By federal statute, that's where they can't exceed 102 inches wide, with the exception of the safety equipment, which is the mirrors, which stick out another 10 inches on each side. We would rather see the buses enter and exit onto Gibson Street, which is twice as wide almost as LaPorte Street. We also want to know, are we considering any other alternative locations? The campus style that most school corporations are going to, we have other property available to not build on this site, to build on different sites, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a concern of ours, is just basic traffic. I mean, Dan mentioned the backup and dropping off and picking up. It's terrible in our neighborhood. It is just completely terrible. And people are inconsiderate. They don't care about the neighbors. They do what they want. It just, this particular design does not seem to fit the neighbors. Dan said that all this focus groups and all this, that we invited business owners and people from the community to address the needs. Did you ask them, was any of the neighbors included in that? Because I don't think we were included in any of this. And quite honestly, from living where I live, the junior high is not the greatest of neighbors. We're constantly cleaning up trash. The buses are a problem, the traffic is a problem. So how's this going to affect our property values? The other concern that I personally have is, I look out my front windows and see the football field. I see green space all the way. I can see Martin's grocery store from my front windows. If we build a 2 or 3 story building there, what am I going to be what's my view going to be? How's that going to affect my property value? And I'll admit I'm completely selfish when it comes to this, but I think that there are other alternatives, and I'm curious as to whether the board looked at other building sites. They were out doing surveying today. We saw them doing surveying and marking flags out today. So from my perspective, it looks like we're moving forward without the neighborhood's input, or without the public input for that matter. That bothers me just a little bit. That's it. Thank you.
What are they doing today, Dave?
Locating existing infrastructure on the campus so that we know exactly what pieces underground and things like that we might run across.
You don't have the answer. Yeah, we had, Kevin, thanks for your comments. We, as far as I know, when I invited people to be on I had principals send me names of people. So, while we probably got a good cross-section of, I'm not sure we got a great cross-section of the neighborhood right there. I want to answer that. Secondly, yes, we have spent probably 6 months looking at sites. Originally, we wanted to go to a campus site in back of Riverside, but there's not enough property back there to do that. So then we asked a realtor in town to put together all the property that's close to the town where we could have some walking districts. We didn't have to have all people riding a bus. That just increases the problem with the traffic. And there were problems with all of them that we had. So this one rose to the top at the end, and this wasn't even on our radar to start with, to put it here. But yes, we did look at a lot of other sites, but there's just a problem. Either they're low and you're going to have to bring in a lot of extra dirt to fill in, or it's close to a railroad track, or we might have been interested in it, but the person who owned it didn't want to sell it. So,
Well, and again, our concern, I think, is we're more concerned, I think, about traffic flow and about buses. I didn't mention that LaPorte and Kingston, that intersection is a terrible intersection. People run that stop sign daily. That's where the Ellingers live. They see it happen every day down there. Then Kingston and Lincoln Way is a pretty tough intersection. Sometimes it's a wrong time of day, which is the school times of day. We really would like you to consider moving that bus exit to the other side of the property if this is the plan that goes forward.
This is just preliminary, there have been no
Right.
traffic studies or anything, so I certainly think that we could look at that option.
I mean, just the street size alone between the two streets makes a big difference in our opinion, definitely in the neighbors' opinions.
I think that's valuable input.
Yeah, me too.
So, you know, that's a purpose of these types of
Absolutely.
meetings, to get that input, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Billy?
You pretty much said it all, okay.
Sure.
That was my only concern was the bus traffic. We're for the project too.
Thank you. Well, and quite honestly, we share your concern. I mean, it's been a problem for years. And, you know, we look at it as, I'm repeating what Dan just said, but we want to make things better, not worse. So we'll do the best we can. I apologize. Looks like my handwriting that I can't read. Jeff?
Jones?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right, that's all right. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm gonna, a couple of the questions were already answered for me, and I appreciate that. The debt load, $50 million seems like a lot of money. I mean, it really does. And the concern I had is how many more millions does the school corporation owe? There's a lot that's going to be changing over probably the next decade. We've heard about e-learning, we've heard about things like charter schools, homeschooling, there's all kinds of things that are changing. I guess one question I had, you talk about a new school at Lincoln. What is the current enrollment, and what are you forecasting enrollment to be 5-10 years from now? Do you have any projections on whether, because going along with this, as I heard 50 million, I thought, okay, what's the long-range vision? What are they thinking? Are they thinking about maybe taking on other students from outside the county, or outside the Plymouth community? Maybe another school closes or something. Lincoln, are they able to, are you addressing the fact that, I mean, maybe 50 million isn't enough. I mean, heaven forbid, maybe it isn't. But are you able to take an inflow, if you're building a new building now, with additional kids from neighboring communities that may not have a school system to go to in future years? Has this been something that has been addressed at all, or what is the enrollment right now, and how much flux do you have at Lincoln to be able to take on more people?
I don't have that study with me, but we just did that earlier this year. We had a demographer come in and do a study, and what we're seeing is something that we're seeing all over Indiana, not just in Plymouth, but we're seeing the number of students coming into the kindergarten classes down somewhat from the classes that are leaving at the seniors, juniors and seniors, and so what we, I think maybe Reed can help with the enrollment now. Is it about
550.
550, and we were up to about 600 a few years ago. So we're going to see that dip a little bit more, and then it should level off. So we're building for plenty of room that we can project in the next 15 years, or at least 12 years.
Will you be able to, your capacity is 600,000 now? Your capacity at 600 at Lincoln Junior High?
At one time, we had almost 900 at Lincoln
Oh, did you really?
High, but it was way too crowded for
Yeah.
900.
Yeah.
So,
But, yeah, I appreciate the questions. We, as Dan mentioned, we did have a demographer come in to help us try to project what enrollment's going to be going forward. There is a science to that, but there's an art to that as well. What is not reflected in those estimates is the situation that you're outlining. What happens if another county school doesn't make it, or what have you, there's consolidation, et cetera. That's a tough one, because if we build for that and it doesn't happen, that's not very prudent. So we are trying to do the best we can with the information that we have. The other question that you raised in terms of other students coming into the corporation, we have that now. So I think we are seeing the impact of transfer students on Plymouth schools. Without that, we would certainly be in a downward trend regarding our population, as a lot of schools are. there was a lot of questions, so if I miss one, help me out. But in terms of charter schools, and I'm just giving my perspective here, but charter schools, we haven't seen that in our community at this point. Certainly, we understand the national focus on that. I think also just working with a lot of school corporations, I think that's more of an urban issue, given the numbers, et cetera. Now, obviously, we have the St. Michael's and First Baptist in our communities. But as far as a charter impact, I'm not sure that's in our future, but who knows. Homeschooling, we do have students that are homeschooled currently, so that is built in, and the democracy takes that into consideration. So we're trying, Jeff, to use the best information that we have to anticipate the future without overbuilding.
Well, I hear a lot and read a lot about affordable housing in this community, and the millennials will be taking the brunt of whatever you do now in the future. Some of us will be gone in the next 10 years, won't be living here, whatever the case might be, but it'll be the millennials that are coming in and trying to raise families. Tax rates are very important. When I saw $50 million, not knowing what your debt load was and where it was going to be 4 or 5 years from now, again, the questions were answered, and I think that's definitely solved that question for me. Another reason I'm here today, just so you know, and probably wouldn't have been otherwise, but taxes are very important to business owners around here, not only homeowners, but business owners. We just were recently in our little business, it's my 42nd year downtown at our little store, we've got about 3/4 of an acre downtown, but our land value assessment went from $24,000 to $47,000 this year for next projected year. So it almost doubled. And we haven't talked to many other people, hardly anyone except for downtown, that's had that. Of course, we're all going to appeal that. But when we see that type of increase on assessed valuation on land, particularly in the downtown business district, we have to sit up and take notice and see, okay, what are people trying to do and what's the tax rate going to be for the rest of us that have ongoing businesses and trying to support families and our community with. So that was another reason I was here today. But you've answered my question on the debt load, and that was really also one of the major things I'd written down to make sure I asked.
Sure. And the debt structure has been something we focused on, Dan mentioned it, going back to 15, 17 years ago as we looked at facilities throughout the corporation. And people got tired of hearing about Vision 2020 when the debt would go down and allow for addressing the junior high. So as long as I've been, close to 20 years here, that's been a plan, if you will. Hopefully making it through, that Lincoln would get us through to this time frame, because without that, we couldn't consider this without a significant impact on our debt service.
Do you, out of curiosity, one final question. Do you have any idea what the actual cost to the school corporation would be by delaying the decision 2 years and going forth at that point? Right now, I will say, we're in a booming economy, really, as far as the unemployment rate is well under 5% overall. And I don't know, interest rates will probably be the lowest now than what they will be in 2 years from now. There's a lot of uncertainties coming up as we look at geopolitical events and everything else, and we may be at the bottom of the curve before the costs start going up. And I just kind of was questioning, it seems like a lot of push all of a sudden wanting to do this in 2018, and I just wondered if a delay another year and maybe action by 2019 you would encumber so many other costs in doing so that it would be most prudent to go ahead and do it now.
Well, nobody knows the future for sure, but everything that I read talks about, when we have low unemployment and the economy starting to become robust, that doesn't do well for interest rates. So we're going to see interest rates on the rise. World events can have an impact on that, certainly. So that and the architects speak better than I in terms of inflation rates or others in the room of what could happen. It's good that the economy's going well, but that also makes supplies a little less available. We all know about supply and demand. So I think the longer we wait, no time's a good time, but the longer we wait, it's just going to be more expensive. That's typically what happens. But interest rates have been low for a while. We're hoping they're going to stay that way until bonds are issued. But we have seen those go up here since last November.
Let's say they're starting to go up.
Yeah.
And the rate would be locked in, right, once we get the bond?
Correct.
Yeah, it's locked in. The December 5th meeting was when Jerry McKibben was here, the demographer. And we still have that presentation. Maybe I could email it to you.
You answered my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Laura Cryer.
Thank you. I just have a couple clarifying questions that were already answered in part, at least. First one, even though this is not part of this specific project, there were several references made to the 2 million GO. If you could maybe talk about what that project or what that money is being used for, that would be helpful. And then there was the talk of the focus group, and it was said that the principals were given the task of coming up with a list of names. Could you also go into detail on that process of how the principals came up with the names, especially the teachers that were on that committee? And then did the committee go around from building to building? And when they did, it sounds like, how did they determine which projects were needed and which ones would have the priorities? Thank you.
You want to, I don't know how we
Yeah,
want to
I
carve
can
that
answer
up.
the one. What was the first question, Laura?
What's
Million
included in
GO.
the
Oh, Dave, can you name off some of the things that are included in the 2 million?
Tier list.
Is that in our meeting?
It's in our regular.
Yeah, are we talking
Dave,
about?
you just put the list together. Can you remember some of them?
Yeah, we had some infrastructure like parking lot repair and replacement. We had, we had some boiler replacement. That was at, we were touching several buildings. I believe Jefferson, we had boiler replacement, we were going to be there. As I said, the parking lot, trying to think of that complete list now. Some roof items.
Here, I got it. Because we've slept a few nights
Yeah,
since
it's
we
been
put
a-
the list together. PHS to complete asphalt and lighting upgrades. Service center parking lot
We had-
behind the what used to be the bus garage.
Yep.
Riverside parking lot, Riverside LED lights, Jefferson LED lights, Washington LED lights, Webster LED lights, Riverside boilers, Jefferson boilers, Webster boilers, Washington drainage and site improvement, and Webster sidewalk.
And somewhat to their defense, we have a 3-year capital plan for the school corporation that again is funded out of our capital projects fund. So in order to implement the strategy that we saw on the debt, it's okay. We have, what projects can we consider that we can't or couldn't consider for some time? And what you heard is a lot of infrastructure. These are not just wants out there. These are things that will have payback when you get when you're talking about boilers and those types of things. So our HVAC systems in various buildings will be addressed. She's back there. Okay. Parking lots, lighting. So a lot of those really sexy projects are included in that too. I think the other question, Dan,
I can
was
answer that.
the names for the committee.
Yeah, Laura, we've slept many nights since that, and I can tell you that when I started out that, I sent an email to the president of the association and asked them if they wanted to be involved in the naming of people from the buildings. And I didn't get a response. So, and the teachers, we didn't have a teacher from every building. We had administrators from every building. We had a few teachers that we asked to be on the committee, but mostly we had parents and business people in the community.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, Mike. Yep.
Okay, to address the board from here, just 3 quick questions. Maybe I missed it, and the presentation was very helpful, so I appreciate that. Still staying 2 grade levels there, is that correct? Okay. And is there something magical about the 49,995? Is there a 50 million threshold that you need to stay under? It's just curious to me that it was $49,995, so I
Sounds
just
like
figured
a
maybe there
deal
was some
Walmart.
legal. Well, I figured that you were trying to make it more palatable, but I thought maybe there was a legal threshold that you had to do something different after 50 minutes.
No, there is no legal threshold.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last question is, in this building, is the renovation of what you're gonna leave included in that?
Yes.
And can you elaborate on that? I'm trying to understand why you would get rid of the majority of the building, but just leave that, and if it's not cost effective to renovate the rest of it, why would we renovate that? So,
Well, from all of our talkings with people in the two groups that we brought in and the parents that were involved in the second focus group with administrative assistants, one of the things that we heard from everyone is don't tear Lincoln Junior High down. So, we went through a building program with 2020, Vision 2020, and it really divided the community there for about 4 or 5 years.
Yes, it
and
did.
we've gotten back together, and our desire to keep the community together, we started looking at how can we give respect to the historical aspect of that building, while still being able to have enough acreage to put in what we need to put in. And so as we started looking at the historical, the 7 renovations that's gone on there and the additions that we've had over the years, really that front part stood out as really the part that people were talking about. They liked driving down up Garrow Street, east on Garrow Street, and looking at that. And so when we finally decided to go in that lot, we asked the architect to do some initial drawings of what it would be like if we tore that down. Now, the question comes, what are we going to do with that building? Well, we have Jefferson right now that they don't have a performing space, and the auditorium would be left in that building. And so one of the things that we would like to do is let the junior high, or let Jefferson know that they can have that space for issues if they want to go concert, if they want to do whatever, instead of being pushed around to this gym and that gym and all over the district. They would have a place that they could go to. We also have, like our Jesse offices, we're over here right now where G&G used to be, and that parking lot floods all the time.
G&G.
maybe Dave Ray's, yes. Good point.
I was close.
Said G&G, I mean, how many people, I guess,
You would know what I'm talking about.
some of us more.
I was fine.
And so their offices, they wanted to know if they could come into that. We have our vocational director here, and he's cramped into a little office, and so we could put that over there. We figured out that we have enough people in need right now that we could fill all of the downstairs. I've talked to Jerry Chavez many times about, they're looking for places to run the entrepreneur place, and he's not committing to anything, but I felt like the second floor of Lincoln could serve that need.
Sure.
As an entrepreneur hub for the community. Right now, I know they were looking at the firehouse temporarily until it took off.
Right.
But we would like, because I feel like the community has said to us, please leave that historical part of that building, that we need to do something in there that is a community, some kind of community project. Obviously, we're probably 4 or 5 years away from that, and things could change, but that's what we would like to do in there.
Makes some sense. Appreciate the explanation. It does seem like it's still going to be costly for that. So if it was costly before, seems like it's going to be, costly now. So I struggle a little bit with that. And I guess after playing in Centennial Gym, if I was going to, that's important, more important than the front. But Centennial Gym to me was pretty important too. But that's just me. So. Please don't think that I'm upset. I was supposed to be somewhere at 8, so I'm leaving, so.
Thanks, man. Those those were the names on the sheet. Are there other folks that did not have a chance to sign or thought of a question? Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to ask
I
my question.
apologize. Could I
I'm
get your name and
Delia
address?
Gazziola. I'm sorry. I'm Delia Gazziola, and my question was similar to what Michael Dell just asked, and my question dealt with the finances and as far as what the figure was, because I too was questioning, like, wow, 49, it's kind of like one of those deals where it's like they always say if you want to sell your house, put 99 something after it. So, but my question is in regards to, I'm assuming that when and if the project is approved, the next thing will be, I'm assuming people will be bidding at some point for this project. So let's say you've got the figure of 49 million. Should that project, we've talked a lot about a lot of the what ifs. If the project happens to be less, what kinds of things are we going to be doing? I'm assuming the corporation would still want to take out that 49 million. So what would we do with that with those additional funds?
Well, I can't speak for everybody on the board, but I'm sure I would make that assumption that we're going to go ahead and spend that money because of two things. One, the project scope. What you're hearing is the project scope. So legally, we can't take money for a particular purpose, and if we have money freed up, we can go off and do something else. The statutes don't allow that. So not only are we setting a ceiling, if you will, in terms of dollars that can be borrowed, we're also setting a scope, if you will, of what improvements can be considered for those dollars. So to your example, if bids come in well, and it's 45 million, then we'll finance 45. So what you're seeing here in terms of the debt structure wouldn't change dramatically. Everything would just come down from what you just saw. Good question. Yes.
Denise Ecker. And I don't have a question or anything. I just want to say that I've taught in Lincoln Junior High for 33 years, and this project is long overdue. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it is extremely necessary.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a criticism.
A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, and appreciate everybody working in that building, the patience that has been shown, because we understand, and we understood it many years ago, that there were needs and concerns in Lincoln. We addressed some of those at the time, but you can't really do the right fix until, you have to take all the consideration. Affordability and the taxpayer certainly is something that I'm not sure one's more important than the other, but there's many levels of constituency that we have to take into consideration. So thank you for the patience, and hopefully we can get all that addressed. Anyone else? Well, as I think Jeff mentioned early on, this is the first step of the process. It's not the last step. So if you have questions, please, or other comments or want other information, please get with the administration. The input and the comments that we've gotten here this evening are important. I cannot promise that you'll be happy with answers, but hopefully you'll be happy that they will be investigated. Are there alternatives to address what's been raised here this evening? So without that input, we wouldn't know. We all know the traffic concerns around there. We're trying to do better. Will it be perfect? I suppose that depends on which house you live in. So we're going to do our best with our architects and our staff, traffic studies, et cetera. Maybe we can helicopter them or something.
It would be the parents. We don't really necessarily have a problem with the children. It's the parents who.
Oh, I dropped off there for years. Road rage is...
The ones who have no concept of traffic rules.
I understand. So with that, if there are no other comments, I'm going to close the public hearing here this evening. Thank you again for your attendance. Jeff, I think we have some legal documents to consider.
Yeah, the first one is the project resolution. As I mentioned, this is required because the board is planning to spend more than $1 million on an individual building. The resolution contains the estimated hard and soft construction costs and the cost of issuance, and establishes the total project cost. It also contains the tax impact in there. That is the first resolution for your consideration.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, I would entertain a motion on the, I'm sorry, which one are we doing?
The project resolution.
Project resolution, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
That motion is second. Questions or discussion?
I'd just like to thank everybody who came this evening and asked questions, and I think we'll definitely take a look at those, and hopefully we can get some of those things resolved. Appreciate your input.
I would like to also thank the groups that have gone through the buildings and provided input many years now since our last building project. This has been an ongoing investigative process, and, you know, we've come to the point in time where we feel like we can do it. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's had input.
I will, and I think I'm being ultra conservative here, but that's just my nature. I'm not going to vote because of my association with Umball, but that doesn't mean I'm not supportive of the project. So I will be abstaining for that purpose. Just I've already stated for years my conflict, but unless I need to break a tie, I'm not going to vote. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain. Jeff, we have a second resolution?
Yes, the second resolution is the preliminary determination resolution. It is required because the board is planning to spend more than $2 million on an individual building. This resolution contains the total project cost, maximum annual payment and lease term, and other financial terms such as the estimated principal amount and also the tax impact like the previous resolution. That's the other resolution for your consideration.
Entertain a motion on the preliminary determination resolution.
So second.
A motion and second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain. I think that concludes our requirements. No? Somebody shaking their head. For this,
Intent to reimburse.
I'm sorry?
Intent to reimburse expenditure.
Oh, sorry. We have a reimbursement resolution?
Yes.
I missed something.
I think that was in your section, but I can talk about it if you want me to.
It's in the what?
I think that was under your section to present, but I can explain. The
Under
reimbursement.
my section, we have a final resolution referring to a, I didn't wear a tie either, so I'm clearly missing memos this evening. So the last is a reimbursement resolution. In essence, what a reimbursement resolution allows is that if we have preliminary project costs, whatever those may be, to whether those are soils, whether those are, architectural, are always eligible for reimbursement. But anyway, preliminary project costs that we may expend funds on, and then it allows us to reimburse ourselves out of the bond issue should we so choose. So with that, I'll entertain a motion
So
on
moved.
reimbursement.
Second.
Have motion second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will abstain. Now, I think we're through the steps of the project. Okay, now I'm going to suggest, and this is self-serving, a 2-minute recess before